Good morning. Welcome to All Around the World. I'm Kathy Smith, and I'll be your host today. In this episode, we will be visiting the land down under, also known as the continent of Australia. Let's get started. Our first guest is a world-renowned Australian historian. He's written 3 books, including Australia, A Brief History, Australia, A Long History, and Australia, A Super Long History. Please help me welcome Harry Styles.
Thanks for having me.
Harry, can you tell me who discovered Australia?
Well, in 1770, Captain Cook reached Eastern Australia.
Interesting. What can you tell me about the population?
Interesting factoid, Kathy. The sheep population increased much like the people. In 1861, there were already 1.2 million people.
Fascinating. Tell us what life was like during the Black War.
That was a very hard time for the people. The Europeans killed many people. Others died of diseases started by the Europeans. And I actually have some pictures to show you during the Black War.
Thank you, Harry. I enjoyed learning more about the history of Australia.
Thanks.
Never seen it look so easy.
Our second guest is an expert in a fascinating place known as Kangaroo Island. Located in South Australia, Kangaroo Island is one of the world's most natural environments. Please welcome Dr. Eloise Scarborough.
Good to be here. And I have a picture here of Kangaroo Island. And see, here we are on the map at the bottom of Australia.
Great. Dr. Scarborough, Kangaroo Island is an interesting name. Can you tell us how that came to be about?
Well, mate, it's an interesting story. The British government sent Captain Matthew Flinders to explore South Australia. He called the island Kangaroo because of the kangaroo meat that fed his hungry sailors. You see, kangaroos were found in abundance where he landed.
Wow, that is fascinating and really sad. They ate the kangaroos? Well, can you tell us about any other wildlife?
Well, of course I can. There's Timor wallabies, koalas. Isn't she cute? Australian sea lions, New Zealand fur seals, Rosenberg iguanas, and cheetahs. And of course, we have over 150 species of birds. As a matter of fact, 1/3 of the whole island is national parks.
Interesting. Do very many people live on the island?
Well, there are not too many people here. We have a small population of about 4,600 people. The population really took off after World War II, when the government created a land scheme that allowed ex-soldiers to farm the land. As a matter of fact, Kathy, that farming led to a thriving produce industry.
Amazing. Can you tell those at home why Kangaroo Island should be their next vacation destination?
Absolutely, Kathy. First of all, we have the most fresh and organic fruits and vegetables growing in abundance. And we have all kinds of wildlife and the most beautiful beaches and rock formations. Everywhere you turn, there's always something new to discover on Kangaroo Island.
You've sold me. I'm totally going there on my next vacation. Thank you, Dr. Scarborough.
Thank you.
Speaking of wildlife, our next guest is here to tell us about a fascinating creature. Help me welcome wildlife expert and veterinarian, Dr. Sandy Richardson. Now, what is a rainbow lorikeet?
A rainbow lorikeet is a medium-sized parrot that lives in Australia.
And what does it look like?
Well, here's a picture. It is very bright. It has blue, green, yellow, orange, black, and red feathers. It also has a red beak.
What do they eat?
Lorikeet eats flowers, pollen, nectar, seeds, insects, and some fruit. They eat hanging upside down, and the tip of their tongue is hairy and helps them get pollen.
Who likes to eat them?
Kites, falcons, and pythons are their predators.
And where do they live?
They live in groups of about 20, but thousands can live together. They live in rainforests, open forests, woodlands, heaths, mangroves, forests, parks, and orchards in the eastern and northern Australia. There are also some that accidentally ended up in Perth.
Accidentally? Tell me about that.
Well, the University of Western Australia accidentally released the rainbow lorikeet in the 1960s, especially in the city of Perth where they are allowed to make messes. They are considered a pest. They are also they also keep other birds from being able to nest.
Oops, that was a bad mistake. Thanks for telling us about the rainbow lorikeet.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Time now for Baking with Betty. Each week, Betty brings us a recipe from the continent we are visiting. Betty, what do you have for us this week?
I'm glad you asked, Kathy. This week, we'll be making damper bread. Damper was a staple food during colonial times in Australia because the dry ingredients could be easily carried and they only needed to add water to make the damper. Today, we'll be adding butter and milk to make our version a bit tastier. Here's what you'll need. 3 cups of self-rising flour, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, about 6 ounces of milk, 1 teaspoon of sugar, and 1/3 cup of butter. First, we're going to mix all the dry ingredients. Now we're going to add the butter. I find it helpful to cut up the butter into small cubes to help and speed up this process. What you're going to do is put your hands in the bowl and mix up the butter together until it looks like fine breadcrumbs. Next, we're going to add the milk and mix this together until we have a soft dough. I've kneaded the dough and placed it into a greased pan. Now I'm going to brush the milk across the dough. And when I'm done doing that, I'll cut a cross on top of it and put it in the oven. We'll bake this at 375 for 30 to 40 minutes. And voila!
I hope that tastes as good as it looks.
It is delicious. And good news! Everyone in our studio audience will receive a free sample of damper bread after the show.
Fantastic. Thank you, Betty. Time to switch gears now from food to fun. Karen Boulevard is here to tell us how you can make your own Australian craft in a little segment we like to call Crafting with Karen.
Hi, Kathy. Today we're going to be making this craft that kids make on Australia Day. What you will need is a paper plate, a piece of paper, crayons, glue, and some scissors. And what you need to do is cut up the paper plate in little sections that almost look like waves. And then you can color your piece of paper any way you want to represent Australia Day.
Our final segment today is brought to us by a huge fan of an Australian native. Please welcome Lucy Carpenter. Which famous Australian would you like to tell us about today?
I'd like to tell you about Steve Irwin, also known as the crocodile hunter.
Why was Steve Irwin famous?
He was famous, first of all, because he came up with safe capture techniques for crocodiles. Secondly, he was the star of a TV show, The Crocodile Hunter. And finally, because he died such a shocking death.
Really? How exactly did he die?
He was stung in the heart by a stingray while he was filming his show. He was only 44 years old.
That is shocking. What else would you like to tell us about him?
He had a wife, Terry, who was often on shows with him, and 2 kids, Bindi and Bob. He named his daughter after his favorite crocodile, Bindi, and favorite dog, Sue.
Poor girl.
Steve and Terry filmed their first documentary on their honeymoon. That's what began their show, The Crocodile Hunter.
Crikey, I think I've seen that show before.
Also, he was scared to death of parrots and was in the film Happy Feet, which is dedicated to him.
What an interesting guy. Thanks for sharing about him.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure.
What a great show. I'd like to thank our guests for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed this special Australian edition of All Around the World. And as they say in Australia, good day, mate!